Good evening. This is Greg. We're starting a little late tonight, but we'll go ahead and get started at 10 after. A lot of extra speakers close by. If everybody please rise for the recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Any additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, we do have a deletion. Just one second, let me pull that up. On the agenda, I need to take off number 18. That'll be it. You'll need to unmute yourself.
All right, I move to approve the agenda with the deletion of number 18.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please respond by saying aye. Caleb McNally,
Aye.
Joe Orb,
Aye.
Mike Reagan,
Aye.
Beth Weimer,
Aye.
Mark Lacey,
Aye.
and Jamie.
Aye.
I'll go 7-0.
Before we go too much farther on that, I do want to make sure that we take the moment to at least do what we need to do when it comes to talking about virtual board meetings, because this still is a virtual board meeting. First thing out of all of this, though, when it comes to our tech, I'll need everybody to turn their computer down so that we don't have echo. Go ahead and hit that mute button. Perfect. The other part of that would be anytime that you do speak, you will need to unmute yourself. That'll probably be moderately difficult just because I'm going to forget every time I talk to unmute myself. So do keep that in mind, being that everyone wants to hear what you have to say during the course of the meeting. And anytime that you're speaking, please make sure you're unmuting. As we are having this virtual board meeting, we are streaming live, so we are having the public be able to listen and observe the meeting. We do clearly identify the speakers when we do our votes, and so we've kind of gone through most of that, so none of the rest of that really isn't too new. So I just wanted to make sure that we were kind of clear on the audio and the muting and unmuting, being that we are in person but having a virtual meeting.
All right, we'll move on to approval of the May 20th, 2020 minutes.
May 20 minutes should be right there in your board packet. I did review them and view them to be accurate.
Move to approve the minutes of the May 20th meeting.
Mike Reagan, I'll second it.
Motion is second. If you all please respond by saying aye. If you approve. Beth Weimer. We'll continue on and let Beth find her computer again. Okay.
Aye.
Mark Lacy,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye, but I think I closed out. Closing windows.
and Caleb.
Aye.
Joe also responded in as an aye, so we'll go 7-0 on that one. Continuing on. Correspondence.
We did have 2 letters of correspondence. One from Maureen Warner, thanking us for the gift card for her retirement. Says it's been a privilege to work with everyone during the past 18 years. Miss you all very much. Our second piece of correspondence was from Linda Carson. She was providing us a thank you for the Amazon gift card. I believe that was from the Teacher Appreciation Week we had the first week of May. We did send Amazon gift cards to all teachers. And then she says, I want to thank you for support the last 39 years. MDCV has the best staff. And it is wonderful to know we have the backs of the board members. Nice comment about commending us and commending the board for putting the students and staff at a high regard, doing what is best for the district. That is all for the correspondence.
All right, sir. Did you have anything come in for public comment?
I did not receive any public comment.
All right, we'll move on into approval of the bills and financial reports.
The check listing document is there in your folder, kind of going through a number of items here, just as a group. You see the purchase for the Edgenuity software that we approved last month. You can see some EVCO payments, workers' comp, which we're going to talk about here tonight. Recreation Commission flow through. We made our bus payment for the year there. So that's that payment. That is our annual lease agreement. You'll see multiple things here for sound products. I actually have an amended payment listing here. It got listed twice. In reality, that check should be for $9,096.95. That is for the purchase of the key card system that we approved 2 months ago. And then our annual cost for the panic button at the district office. You can see some other items in there. Our June payroll payment flow through for 3 Lakes. We've had some graduation awards there on the Visa, teacher appreciation, as we talked about. Vision payment, waste management. Overall, those are the checks for the month. Looking at our cash balances, you'll notice that some of those are obviously in the negative. The way that the June payments work is that those come in towards the end of the month, so that is not necessarily reflective of where we will be. Kind of preliminarily, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, when it comes to the budget to end the year, as our fiscal year starts on July 1st, we will have transfers to make. We'll have a couple of sizable payments that'll come here towards the end of this month, and we will settle everything up and be ready to go. That is all I have for.
I move that we approve, this is Jamie Sowers. I move that we approve the bills and financial reports as presented.
Joe Arm, second.
Here's Greg. We had a motion and a second. If there's no other further questions or comment, we'll respond.
Yeah.
Aye. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Did we get reimbursed for the plane tickets? Not yet. Is it coming?
Ben's system's down, and he responded to Mark in the affirmative that the refunds are on their way to the senior class. Were there any other questions, comments? All right, if you will respond with an aye in favor when I call your name. Caleb.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Mike. Having fun, Mike. Say it loud and Joe's ready. Mike will pick you up. All right, we'll move on to Beth.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye.
That motion also goes 7-0. Thank you all. Now we'll turn the mic over to Jamie for the 3 Lakes report.
Okay, we met on Monday and I feel like the highlights where we're still looking for 4 staff members, which I feel like is, I mean, we've hired some, but we're still looking for 4. 2 teachers, a speech pathologist, and a social worker. Went over the financial reports. We voted on upgrading the phone system, which we had looked at leasing or buying, and it's I feel like buying the phones was a better option, so that's what we went with. Approve a contract for WebKids, which is the system that IEPs are done on for next year. And talked about ESY, extended school year. It will also be virtual like school was. They're still not going to do in person. I thought this was exciting, which I hope one day we can do this preschool grant for Linden and Osage City. They got a grant to fund preschool for all like for all kiddos. So I would like to do that. I mean, I wish we could do that someday in our district. We also adopted a math curriculum that's specifically looking at, kids that aren't progressing or learning with like this school-based curriculum. So it was a big purchase, but I felt like the committee had looked at a lot of programs. So we'll be curious to see how that works in the next year. That was about it. Joe, do you have anything?
Nope, that was good.
Jamie, is that grant for, you say all kids that are that age? Or all
3 and
kids?
4 all 3 and 4 year olds. So like right now, our preschool isn't open to just any kid. You have to
Right.
meet criteria or have an IEP or be so, yeah. So
Well, I was just making sure you didn't mean that they got a grant for, like at Waverly, they got little bullpups or whatever, where if it's a daycare that turns into the preschool. I don't know if you guys know much about that, but it would be really cool to have. I mean, I'm not proposing anything here, but
yeah.
daycare is in such short supply around here.
Right. Right. And no preschool options. I mean, if parents would, not like in our community, like if you went to London or something, but yeah.
Yeah. So something to think about.
I agree.
I think it'd be a good recruitment tool.
I was unaware of that grant, so I'm interested to learn more about it and what all that entails.
I feel like Janine would be a really good help. She is in, yeah.
I'll be the first to admit, if there's something that I don't know much about, it's the preschool age and the things that are there as resources. And so definitely something to look at and see what we can do.
Because like Santa Fe Trail, they already have like the inclusive preschool for all kids. Yeah.
A lot of our kids go to Linden, I know.
Yeah. To the church.
Yeah.
It's exciting for, those districts. And I agree. I feel like eventually it'd be awesome if we could have it here.
Any other questions for Jamie? Well, thank you. We'll move on to the district update.
Not as long-winded as the last time that we kind of talked last month, but I just wanted to obviously kind of put this at the beginning of the meeting, being that it's kind of something that is on the tip of everybody's tongue on how things are looking for the start of next year. I would say that of those 3 options that I presented last month, more than likely we're talking about starting in August as usual. There may be some things that we strategically choose to do differently simply because we want to, maybe limit gathering or something like that. But more than likely it's going to be things as customary. And so I know that the state board was talking this past month about how that's going to look, and there's nothing really definitive that has come from those discussions. But I don't know, I wanted to kind of pass along an experience that I had even just today of kind of a sign for things that we're going to have to deal with when it comes to next year. Specifically, what do we do when we start having confirmed cases of kids in school? How do we handle that? How do we then mitigate, the spread? There's going to be just some learning that goes along with that, not only with obviously the kids, but with the parents. If you're a parent of a 2nd grade classroom and you find out that there's 2 kids in the classroom that have COVID-19, well, then what does that mean for your child? Do you need to go get tested? What do we need to do in response to that? Right now, the general rule of thumb seems to be is that we're following the recommendations from the county health department. They're doing a lot of contact tracing, and they're alerting those families and folks who have been exposed within that time frame of when they would be contagious. And I think they are advising them to isolate themselves, at least for a period of time. I'm not entirely sure if it's the 14 days that they've been talking about, but they are having them isolate. And when you get into a classroom setting, what does that mean? Do you start isolating the whole class, being that they were exposed during a time of which they were contagious? I don't know. And those are things that we're just going to have to kind of walk through. When this thing all started, it was community spread was the big thing. If you start having community spread where the disease is spreading amongst your students, then that's when you take action. You consider closing down the building, things of that nature. And then the question becomes, do we close one building over the other? If we don't have community spread in one, do we start having folks who are, as of right now, when it comes to contact tracing, they don't have you go test unless you have symptoms. And so are we going to get into a scenario where people who have students in a classroom with multiple students that are positive, are we asking them to go get tested before they come back? There's a lot of those pieces and how that's going to all play out that are still kind of up in the air. And I know that we'll get to those answers, but not having those answers right off the bat is going to be concerning to people. That process is just a process that is being developed right now. And I think that that's going to be a lot clearer as we get closer to August, or once we start kind of going through those situations as they come, kind of working out all of those details as we go along and making sure that we are, again, doing what's best for kids. So I know it's kind of a double standard. We're going to be back to school as usual, but it's still going to be a little different in how we kind of handle that exposure piece and how those things kind of come together. So
I'm assuming
promise
that's gonna
that is
all
not
be,
limited.
that'll all be laid out by the state though, right?
I don't even know that it would be the state. It'll be the county
Or your
health.
county health department, they'll have guidelines for this is what happens, you handle this, this is how you
Right.
handle
Like
it.
for instance, today I gotten that phone call that I had been advised by a community member that we might have a situation with students who are coming to summer conditioning, but it was upon call with the county health department. Yeah, we didn't contact you because you're not at risk.
Mhm.
The contact was not within that window, so the exposure was not there, and so we didn't need to take those additional steps.
Sure.
As long as we are advised by the county health department, they're going to be kind of hand in hand working with us on how that's going to look. I know that they're not going to want to ever advise closing schools, but I think that there could be a time where they go, we need to slow this down a little bit and give us some time because community spread has occurred and we need to do something with that.
If that happens, and we have to close school, will the state, I don't know, forgive hours or days? Like, will they have a plan?
I do think that they are going to have that. I think July 2nd was when they were aiming for
Okay.
that, or July 1st. I do think we're going to have some guidance on that. They're already advising us that's going to be out there
Okay.
as a contingency plan. But they're encouraging us to, if you have to go out on extended periods of time, just like we talked last month, what's your plan going to be? Because you need to have one.
Right.
So I feel confident that we already have our plan in place for the learning side of things. Now it's just running through those, I wouldn't say singular issues, but the smaller group type of setups where, your entire fifth grade class has been exposed to a kid. The office was exposed to him because he came down to the office because he was not feeling well. XYZ. Then now what do? You go back through and we test everybody to make sure we know who is and who isn't. Right now, they don't do that, again, simply because I don't think that they have all of the testing that they need to have to do it that way. The way it was explained to me is that the state only tests if you're exhibiting 2 symptoms. Now that's state testing. You can choose to go to your provider and get testing, I think, to some degree. But are we going to be asking that of them? Is that the Osage County asking them to do that? I don't really know. That's not a road we've gone down just of yet.
Okay.
And I'm not sure the county health department has that exact answer either. But back to school is normal. I mean, I think that's a leap forward in and of itself. Yes, there is going to be some assumed risk there, but we're going to mitigate that as much as we possibly can. We're obviously going to talk about healthy habits and making sure that kids are safe.
All right, any other questions for Jill on the district update? If not, we'll continue on to number 10, the budget closeout.
Yearly, we have you guys authorize this wording that's here in front of you to close out the budget, giving us the authority to make the necessary transfers for the cash that we have on hand so we can zero out 06, zero out 08, and finalize the budget for the 2019-2020 school year.
Right. I move to authorize Superintendent Joe Sample and Board Clerk Angie Volkman to close out funds according to state regulation, pay remaining bills in order to close out the 2019-2020 fiscal year, and to transfer the remaining balances to contingency reserve, at-risk, vocational education, special education, food service, textbooks, capital outlay, and professional development at Superintendent Sample's discretion.
This is Jamie Sowers. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? You will respond aye if you are in favor when I call your name. Beth Weimer,
Aye.
Mark Lacy,
Aye.
Jamie Sowers,
Aye.
Mike Reagan,
Aye.
Joe Orb,
Aye.
Caleb McNally.
Aye.
President also says aye, so that will go 7-0. Anything else we need on the budget closeout before we move on? All right, we'll move on to number 11, the Quinimo mower quote.
As we discussed last meeting, Mike wanted me to bring a quote for a mower at Quinimo, and so I contacted Sloop Sales over at Linden, and so talked with them about what we had purchased from them before, and then getting a quote for that exact mower that we have currently sitting up here at Melbourne and share with Quinimo so that it could be down at Quinimo. One thing that I wanted to note, whether we move forward with this or not, if the consensus is that we would like to move forward with this, my advisement is that if you could do me the kind favor and not have a $12,000 purchase that I have to find a place for within the budget before we close it out. So if we do want to move forward with it, I would rather we do it during the next fiscal year, which would be next month.
Is it a problem that they share?
Well, I mean,
That's
I think it's coming from a place of inconvenience, having to come up and get it loaded up on the trailer, take it down to Quinn, do the mowing, come back. I mean, you're probably losing an hour of work just with the transport.
Don't we want to probably have Ms. Wallenberg present for the conversation anyway? I mean,
I've visited with her, and she didn't seem like it's that big an inconvenience currently. The other thing was a concern to her was where we're going to store it, because currently that means we'd have to invest money in the storage shed over there as well too. And I personally, I guess I believe that, yeah, it is an inconvenience. He's spending an hour once a week going back and forth moving a mower, but at the same time, $13,000 we could, I feel we personally spend somewhere else within our budget.
Well, I live across from the school and I see that yard and it is not getting the same treatment that it gets over here. It's usually about 8 inches high before it gets mowed most of the times, because either he's waiting for Lori to decide when she's going to mow over here and he can't get the mower, or we're waiting on weather, because once it's wet and it's 8 inches high, you can't take a mower in it. So it's not just the 1 hour inconvenience. It's also trying to deal with them mowing over here and the weather. And as far as the storage, that shed either needs tore down or fixed up. It's been an eyesore out there for a while that you can see through parts of the shed. And our custodian over there built houses for 20 years. I'm pretty sure he could put siding on that.
That's Greg. I agree in part with Mike, but do we need to have as big a mower in Quinemo as we have over here? Can we go with a smaller size deck? I mean, there's not quite as much property over there that needs mowed, but I do agree that when the weather hits and you gotta get it mowed, if you gotta wait on your mower to get done somewhere else, it's rather difficult. Like Mike says, it gets tall quick. My question would be, do we need the exact same size deck over there as we have over here? Or can we get by with a smaller?
I would say that I didn't really do a ton of, maximizing of dollars when it came to getting this quote. It was more or less, I wanted to make sure that what I was presenting was comparable to what we already had. If we wanted to look at something, a different size, different price, I don't know that the deck will really dictate a ton of dollars. I think it just depends on the mower that you're going with. There might be some alternatives and in fact, I almost want to say he attempted to talk to me about some alternatives for the deck size that might be less money. So
You get a smaller deck, you get a smaller motor, you don't have to pay quite as much. For
Yeah.
the whole
but I do think that
setup.
there's and again, I'm only coming at this from when I purchased my mower, going from like a 42 or from a 36 to a 42 only required like an extra $100. So I would imagine if you're talking about a 60 inch compared to a 72, you might be talking $500 difference, but it might, if you're going with a different mower, it might save you a couple $1,000.
Then we might look at.
Because I guess, to answer your question though, the football field in that area, having mowed that last year, you really want that size because you'll spend a good 45 minutes just mowing that blank piece of land. If it was only the front yard and that type of stuff, you definitely could get away with a 42 inch and be fine with it. But when it comes to that back football field area and the baseball field, then it starts adding up.
Yeah, but if you're able to keep it mowed at a 4 or 6 inch height to start with, you can get by with a smaller mower and still go pretty quick through it.
Yeah, I mean, I could present definitely different options.
Let's say since you're asking for, wait till next month to approve it anyway, I'd say give you a chance to look at some of the other options, what are available for different things and see what we can come up with.
Is that generally okay that we're not doing the same? Because I saw that as, I guess, one of the bigger issues is I didn't want to have Quinnamo have something less than what Melbourne had, that type of thing.
I'm not real familiar with Lexmark mowers, but whichever size you get, I'd still make sure it's a commercial grade mower and not a consumer grade, because that would make a difference as much mowing as you're going to do. So I don't know how small those would even go in a commercial grade.
Well, and I also feel like if we have to fix the building, we need to know how much that's gonna cost. I mean, is it just siding, or does it really need to be redone, or?
I've been in.
I haven't either. I just feel like,
It's been a while since I've been in. It probably needs some structural work in there also with all the supports. If you could look at both of them and come back with something next month.
And in the meantime, can they get some sort of better coordination on a schedule for the mowing?
That's something that we've been working on consistently.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just somewhat difficult.
All right, any other comments on the mower system? All right, we'll move on to school supply purchases.
As we talked last month during board comment, we are going to take some of our CARES money and provide school supplies for our students for next year. So we will be purchasing all of the main pertinent school supplies for each and every student in our district. Twyla has gone through this. Ben has gone through this. We consulted previous school supply lists. We did pare some things down, manage it a little bit. Sometimes as you go through those elementary levels, certain things are needed at certain levels. So we tried to generalize a little bit, and we will end up needing some supply that we end up just keeping in the office that we utilize for our classrooms. But long story short, we did put together a quote of $75, $85, $96, and that will purchase all of the needed school supplies for each student in the district. So the only thing that they'll need is a backpack and maybe some earbuds. I don't think there was really much else. If you wanted to get fancy and have your own trapper keeper, if that's even a thing anymore, but that type of deal. By no means are we telling you that you don't need to get it, but if you want to get it, that's perfectly fine. You get that really cool pencil bag that's got like the Ninja Turtles on it. Is that cool? Yeah, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That is cool.
I'm really excited about it.
It's good stuff.
As a parent, thank you.
Could use funds. Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the 75, 85, 96 as proposed.
This is Jamie Sowers, I'll second.
That's great. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Good preschool.
I
Sorry,
say we
about
do.
that.
I don't have it specifically listed out, but I want to say we do. Yeah.
All right, if you'll respond and aye when your name's called, if you approve. Caleb,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
and Greg. That motion goes 7-0. Thank you all coming. I think that's very nice of the district to be able to do that. Number 13, property insurance renewal.
As I mentioned, I think I even talked about it last meeting, but the carrier for our property insurance is no longer carrying school districts. So the folks over at CBiz in cooperation with KSB and all of those entities have been doing a lot of work to get a new pool put together. And so I was contacted here in the last week by CBiz telling me that they did have the pool ready for us to go into. If we so choose right now, that would be a program cost of $43,631, which actually is about $600 less than what we paid the last time we renewed. And it actually does take the deductible down from $10,000 to $5,000. Remember us going back and forth or having that increase so that we didn't have to spend so much? Well, now they're just giving that to us, thank goodness. Just as a side note, I would tell you that we are coming out smelling like roses on this thing. Had a text chain with the other Three Lakes superintendents. Most of them were experiencing an $18,000, $15,000, $25,000 increase. So I'm thankful that we haven't had a whole lot of claims, if any, lately. And that is certainly showing with our pricing. So my recommendation would be to jump into the pool now, and we would be getting a rebate for the remainder of our contract. I think that goes until November. So we'll be getting some money back for that aspect once we make this move.
Joe, do you need a motion for this 43,631 or?
Yes, I do.
I guess I moved, this is Jamie Sowers, moved to authorize $43,631 for, I don't know the name of the place, I can't read it. Kansas Educational Risk Management Pool for Property Casualty Boiler Program Insurance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Insurance, yeah.
This is Mark Lacy, I second.
Mr. Gregg, we got a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye when your name is called, please. Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Caleb?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
And Greg also goes 7-0 on that motion. Thank you all for that.
One thing I forgot to also add on there, no. Another good thing is that there is additional coverage. I think there was some catastrophic coverage or something like that changed within it as well. So not only, again, are we paying less, deductible is less, but we actually have more coverage than we did before. So I would say that CBiz did well.
Well, good. Thank you for that. Good news is always happy. All right, moving on to KASB work comp.
Let's see. For some reason that didn't pull up. Let me grab that quote. As we usually do, we have an annual work comp payment that we do to KSB. We need to approve that here for the month of June so that we can renew for the next school year. Obviously, this covers us and aids us during our work with any workers' compensation claims. So this is our typical amount. I do think that, I think it was right on pretty much with what we've paid in the past, a little lower. Again, we don't really run a whole lot of work comp claims. So that 10,607 is the amount.
I'll make a motion to approve the work comp premium as proposed at 10,607.
This is Beth Weimer. I second.
Ms. Gregg, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? You want to respond saying aye when your name is called. Caleb?
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Greg also, aye, 7-0 again. Very good, thank you. Moving on to our foundation repair bid.
There in your folder, you've got the RFP that was written, being that we have some foundation work that's going to cost us prospectively more than $20,000. You can see the pertinent information that goes along with it. I am aiming for us to be completed by September 1st of this year. Essentially, one thing I wanted to note, we had a wide variety of bids the last time that we did this with the paint job for our building here. And I guess I came to find out that if you weren't very specific about what you needed them to do, then there was going to be a lot of wiggle room as to what's being proposed and how they're proposing to do it. So in avoiding that, I specifically took the information that I had received when we were prospectively looking at this, considering that we had warranty work done by Thrasher, and they're going to be replacing 15 piers that are currently already in the ground there. I wanted us to continue with piers of the same company, same comparison, the same type. And so I specifically put some items in there that describe what they need to do, or what equipment they need to use, how many need to be put in, and where they need to be put in. So you can see that kind of in the documentation. The highlighted areas, we need to put in 25 piers in the locations as per that map. And then that third piece of the document, pages 3 and 4, give the specs on the push piers that would be lifting the foundation in the project. So that is our RFP, and this will be sent out, advertised, all that good stuff, and will be on hand the Friday before our July meeting, and then be ready to go for your selection in July.
When is the July meeting?
The July meeting,
And your submission must be received by July 10th.
we're the 15th. Oh no, did I push it too far? I did, didn't I?
It's the 8th, isn't it?
Good catch.
It is the 8th. Thank you. So I'll make that July 3rd.
So you say Thrasher gave you the scope here?
Mm-hmm.
Now, sorry, I should know this, but did they already give you the scope? And when did they give you the scope for the rest of it? Was that recently or when they did the original
I
work?
would say within the last 3 months.
Okay. I'm just wondering if different companies would provide a different option, you know what I mean? That's kind of pre-baked for Thrasher if that's the system they use, right? I mean, I don't have any other ideas, or I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just, I wonder if others would do it differently, and maybe there's cheaper options. I just have done enough, at least residential stuff, to know that there's a lot of different approaches to foundation repair, and some are Cadillacs and some are Chevys, but the Chevys work great. I don't know. But I also agree with you that you want to have a really detailed, at least the quote needs to be, whatever you're signing needs to be really detailed, or they'll stray from it, but.
I wanted to be able to give you apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. I felt like that was a lot of the problem that we kind of ran into when we were making or having our conversation about the paint bids.
Right.
If we could do that all over again, I would have selected the paint that we wanted to go with.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I would have dictated the coats that we were going to have on there, and then look and see how those bids would have came together. So
this is a much more specialized thing, kind of, though, right?
It is.
I mean, I don't feel strongly about it. It's just some feedback where you could always get bids of whatever sort you want. And then they sell you on why theirs is better and maybe why it can or can't be cheaper.
The
And then-
unfortunate part would be is that we have to go with the lowest qualified bid. We don't have the opportunities, so.
That's right, yeah.
So, I mean, in theory, you know, if we're not comparing apples to apples, then we're going to compare apples to oranges, and maybe those oranges are $15,000 less, but you can't specifically state as to why that would be a lesser project if they're meeting all of the demands of your
Yeah,
RFP.
I got you. What do you think this is going to cost again?
Initial cost was around the $40,000, $45,000 range.
And we haven't looked at this, right? We were just looking at the west wall.
No, this would be for the full, because we're going to already have the warranty work completed by Thrasher, because that's who our warranty is through. So they're going to be putting in 15 of those piers that are on that spec, that job detail list, or that map.
I guess I'm just saying, I didn't remember if all of it was as bad as this and if it needed the whole thing yet. If it needed this level of work. I don't know. I'm not trying to suggest that it doesn't. I was making sure before we spent 40,000 that we knew damn well that we needed it.
Well, it's already failed once, specifically because we don't have these other supports there. They underdid it when they did it last time. And so if we want to eliminate the possibility of dealing with it sinking again, you have to prospectively lift that entire half of the building. Because it is noticeable when we had them come in and look at it, you know, they throw that laser light up and you can see just the dip that just goes right into that corner, and you can see it on that opposite wall. It's just very gradual, but it does it, and it just goes right down.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we don't need it. It just to have somebody give you what they want to do, and then that's what you use for the RFP. I get specific, but it's going to rule people out. But you probably only have them responded anyway, I suppose, right?
Well, I mean, those push piers that they have are provided by a third party. So if
Somebody
there's
else could do it.
Somebody else could do the same.
Yeah, I mean, if you're pretty confident about it, that's fine.
And that was another thing that I wanted to make sure that we weren't putting the wording in there completely geared towards one party. That's why I specifically checked on the push pier aspect of that. And yes, it's not like Thrasher produces these push piers. It's this support works group. And so I would imagine you can contract with them and make that order and get in what you need if you're an opposite foundation group.
Ms. Gregor, do you need a motion tonight or just a consensus?
I would need a motion to let bid. With the change of July 10th to July 3rd.
This is Caleb. I move that we submit the foundation for repair for Quanimo out for bids with the change to July 3rd needs to be submitted to us by.
This is Mike Reagan. I second the motion.
Greg, any other questions or comments, concerns? Respond by saying aye when your name's called if you approve. Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Caleb?
Aye.
Greg also says aye, so we'll go 7-0 on that motion also. Let's talk about some milk.
Let's talk about it, shall we? These are our annual milk bids. We usually go with the firm milk bid every year. And so you can see the numbers there. Pretty typical. Good group to work with. Not a problem. Came through during a pandemic. I'd say that's pretty dang good. So I would need a motion on this as well.
And make a motion that we approve the firm bid from Osage Dairy for the 2021 school year. This is Jamie.
This is Beth. I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? If you respond by saying aye when your name is called, if you approve. Caleb,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Greg also says aye. That one also goes 7-0. Student assurance services.
If you remember last year, we kind of had a quick conversation about this student assurance services. You can see the yearly premium. This is for the secondary insurance for any of our students if they happen to be injured at an event, or out on the playground, anything of that nature, then this secondary insurance would be there. Last year we had this conversation asking, and I was asking the question of, is this something that we want to continue, being that that is a steep premium and that is something that we typically don't have a whole lot of claims for. In fact, I think I could probably count on 2 fingers the number of claims that I've seen in the last 2 years. So we are definitely not meeting that premium in any way, shape, or form. We would probably be better off pocketing that money and paying it out directly if that's what we were going to do. So I guess my thought process has shifted a bit, that I guess it is my recommendation that we don't necessarily follow through with this assurance, the student assurances for this year, being that the consistent feedback that I get from people is that it's difficult. They don't understand it. They'd much rather just go to the hospital, get the bill, and work the bill out with the provider, having it put on a payment plan, or them going through and having some of it forgiven, whatever it may be, if there's aspects that they can't pay for. Again, I think that our experience with this is that it's difficult to navigate, and not a whole lot of people even go after it, even after we explain it to them that this is available for them. I specifically remember last year, one of our students having a knee issue during a ball game that they ended up having surgery for. And I think it just proved to be something that they weren't interested in when they could have benefited from it. So long story short, I don't find this to be a valuable use of our money. It is good in theory, but in the process of it, it does not seem to be carried out very well.
It's not something we need to protect ourselves if someone gets hurt or something.
Nope, that's what our catastrophic insurance is for.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no, we are not obligated to have it. And this is something that a lot of school districts don't do. No, I don't need any motion.
Okay.
I just wanted to read the room and see whether or not that was an issue if I chose to just pitch this in the trash.
I'm okay with it.
Good.
So is the school district gonna work with it? I mean, we've used it and it works and you can get it done.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we did too.
And it was a big help with the concussion.
Yep. I guess I'm not saying that it doesn't work. What I'm saying though is that for a lot of people, it's not accessible. It's just not something that they do. I mean, literally, I almost could probably fill most of it out. And I would tell you that at least 80% of the time, it still wouldn't get turned in and they still wouldn't make a claim for whatever reason.
It covered your personal bills, I guess, when otherwise it just wouldn't have. Is that
It
the
covered
difference?
what your insurance doesn't.
Balance, the
Yeah.
balance of what your insurance does.
Yeah,
It ends up being like co-insurance.
yeah. Yeah, I think it paid, I mean, because we utilized it, the same thing, it was a concussion, so, you know, that's a CAT scan and a bunch of other stuff, and it definitely helped. But it was, the paperwork has to be filled out, you know, I felt like we were lucky the coach had the paperwork filled out when I came to pick her up. I mean, he handed me the envelope with it filled out and in it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you have to finish filling it out. You have to take it to the doctor, the hospital. You have to send in the bills that don't get paid. I mean, there's definitely responsibility on the student side, on the parent side. So whether that gets done or not.
Yep. Essentially on our end, Joe, just so you know, it's like an accident report, and you'll go through and fill out the form based on that. It'll say when it happened, where it happened, who is witnesses, who's the person that signs off on it, verifying it happened. That's kind of what gets compiled and handed to the parents.
I guess maybe there are people using it. I don't know. I was under the impression they weren't using it. Maybe I should say I'm okay with it.
I mean, I wouldn't say that
2 out of 6
it doesn't
or
get
whatever.
used, but I'm saying that the claims are fairly minimal. And it, for a large amount of the scenarios that this would be something that would be applicable. Again, I would say 80% of the people are not interested in pursuing it for whatever reason. Because I mean, that sounds like a pretty involved process.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the school did all of their part that they were supposed to do, but
you got to
the
send in
parents,
bills.
you have to take it and submit your bill. I think you have to put your bills. I mean, you have to finish filling the paperwork out. You have to, yeah, there's a lot on the parent part. And I mean, if you have, I mean, our insurance picked up a lot of it, but.
Mm.
So it but paid quite a bit for you guys, I presume.
We still had some left over that we had to pay, but it's not something that I would have thought of. If I wouldn't have been handed that envelope, I'd never even thought about it. I'd have just taken it on my own. I mean.
Coach Greg, you mentioned something about the catastrophic insurance, picking up something.
Yeah, if we happen to have the catastrophic insurances, let's say that we end up having a hole on the football field that the football coach didn't see, and a kid steps into it and shatters his leg, and that we are liable for that, then the catastrophic insurance would take over and pay those claims.
It won't help with anything.
It wouldn't help in cases of, again, like, right, we twisted a knee while we were running track for no apparent reason. It was a common injury. The concussion aspect, they fell and hit their head on the floor after going up for a rebound. Those are just accepted risks that go along with playing those sports. But again, if you've got the volleyball coach that isn't paying attention and, someone receives a traumatic brain injury because a standard falls and hits them in the head, then that's the catastrophic aspect.
But I guess, so I probably spoke too soon there. If somebody, the example you just gave, somebody's doing a layup, blows their knee, that family doesn't have any insurance at all. This plugs the gap for them.
This would not be a primary. This would only be a secondary.
What happens if they don't have primary?
Well, then that would be something that they would just work out with the hospital.
This doesn't cover like an insurance. This only this is like a supplemental.
This is like the Affleck part of it,
Yeah.
So meaning if they don't have insurance, it won't do anything at all for them?
Not that I know of. simply because they are only taking care of a remainder balance that's already been paid on by insurance.
Okay.
I'm
But
pretty
the
sure
other-
it does not. I think it even says in there that a qualifier is you have to have a primary insurance for it to work.
So, but where it really comes into play, I guess, is if you got like a $5,000 deductible, which I'm sure is common, and you got a $4,000 bill, this pays how much again?
I don't have the specs in front of me.
Yeah. It doesn't pay all the remainder. You still have some. I can't remember. It's been so long since we used it, but I want to say it like a lot of a certain amount. Like you only got
Yeah,
this much.
I can't say exactly what it was.
Because I know.
I know we ended up paying some, but it wasn't what we were gonna have to pay.
Well, it sounds like you guys are probably saying it's probably worth it. I mean, maybe it's a small investment for big value to the community. I don't know.
What's that?
Is it a small investment for kind of a big return for the community, you think, or?
Depends on if your kid gets hurt. Then it
Depends
means a
on if you
lot
want
to
to.
you.
Yeah.
Depends on if you want to put the effort into it. Like I said, I wouldn't even have thought about it because I just would have taken. I mean, it's an assumed risk. My kid's playing ball, they blow out their knee. I'm paying for it. I mean, I wouldn't have expected that if it would have happened at the ball fields with summer league rec ball. She's got, the concussion down there.
And I would say again, the common feedback that I get is that it's a process that you have to follow up on and be very specific with, and just something that a lot of folks are not interested in doing. They'd rather just, either work it out with the insurance and the provider. That enough is plenty for them to have to deal with. Going and reporting bills and providing proof of an insurance payment and all that other jazz is somewhat cumbersome, which deters people. Yes, there is a time frame.
Yeah. I think it is 90 days. Sometimes you don't even have your hospital bills by then.
I know it sounds heartless, but again, I feel, and I guess I didn't realize the two positive experiences, so I feel poorly saying this, but I don't find this to be a benefit for most of our folks because it's just something that they're not interested in doing.
Yes, Greg, so most everything you've heard from the district has been, it's not worth dealing with.
I mean, we'll hand it to people, or people will call in and we'll tell them about it and explain what they need to do. And literally that's as far as that goes. The phone conversation's over. They're not pursuing it any further.
Very little usage the last few years.
Yeah, and we're definitely not getting our premiums worth out of it either.
Anybody have any other strong feelings or recommendations they'd like to voice at this time? Is this something that can be picked up at a later date should we decide to change our mind, or is that going to increase our?
Oh, I imagine if we came back and said that we wanted to start over again, they're not going to refuse our money by any means. I don't think this is an exploding offer.
Well, I'd say this time, the way it looks to me, I'd say we can let it drop for now unless there's a large uproar from our constituents saying, hey, I think we need to put it back in order.
Well, let's put our names on it. I move to approve the payment of student insurance services in the amount of $5,031 for student accident insurance for the school year 2020, 2021.
I'll second it, Seth.
Motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? If you'll respond aye when your name's called, if you approve. Caleb. Joe.
Aye.
Mike. Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie. That's split. That means Greg has to vote. Greg is actually gonna vote aye also. That takes us to a 4-3 vote. Motion passes. Anything else on the school shirt or the student shirt you need to speak of it?
Nope.
All righty. We'll move on to 19, ball field lease.
I wanted to give an update to the group. I did provide the city with the lease that we talked about back in May. They provided us after their June, I think it was June 1st meeting. And as you can see from the correspondence, they indicated that they have an existing lease with the Rec Commission for the property. And at this time, they are not prepared to break or renegotiate the lease without the involvement of the leasee. This kind of goes hand in hand with some conversations that I had with the city and with the rec. Specifically, the way that I understood it, or the way that it was kind of provided to me, is that the city's not real interested in looking to initiate the conversation of renegotiating with the rec. And so I called Scott Rice with the rec and kind of explained the city's position, and indicating that they essentially left the door open, that if the rec came to them saying that they would like to renegotiate their lease, specifically stating two things, one of which being that they give the city permission to negotiate a lease with another public entity that does not conflict with the lease of the rec as it's written, and that the rec also writes in a portion that says that they authorize the city to allow usage of the property during the months of March, April, and May. So that would be the extent of the time that we are using it. That is the only place upon which that our lease conflicts with their lease. And so if the rec makes those two changes, then I do not necessarily see a reason as to why the city would feel that our lease conflicts with their lease. So Scott said that he was interested in that, to basically copy paste their lease as it's written right now, add in those two pieces of wording, and then provide that to the city. And the city would then have two leases at their feet upon which they can make their decision to pursue or ignore or whatever they want to do with it. So that's kind of where we are. I don't know the timeline on which Scott's going to have all of that completed, but I do think that he's interested in agreement that this needs to be done as we are, electing to make payment on a number of projects that will go onto the property. And I haven't heard a whole lot of negative feedback on any other aspect. It's just this little tripping point of, we have a lease currently and we're not going to pursue renegotiating with that leasee.
If that doesn't work out with the city, you could always do a 3-party agreement, which we talked about, make their lease, make our lease subject to theirs, add it as an addendum, just if you get into the conversation, that's something else you could throw out if you hit a roadblock with the city on what you just threw out. But I don't feel strongly about it personally. But
there was some discussion about us negotiating with the rec, that our lease should go to them, being that they have the lease. I indicated that that was not something I'm interested in, being that we would be making property improvements, and that if there happened to be a problem and let's say we put in a $75,000 light fixtures down at the softball field, and then we get hit by high winds and they get all knocked over, we're still going to make a, an insurance claim and have those reconstructed. But for whatever reason, perhaps we run into a problem with the city, then we have this issue where we don't have a lease with the city, we have a lease with the rec. And so whatever agreement that we come to, I want to have direct, I guess,
Control.
wording that says that we are leasing from the property owner and they are allowing us to do this. Because the rec doesn't own the property. They have a lease for it, but they don't own it.
Right.
And I do think they were going to, I guess, one more thing of feedback, that map that we provided, it included kind of it's the drag or the tractor pull area there to the north. I think they're not interested in leasing that aspect of it. So I think they don't have a problem letting us use it if we wanted to for like a football practice or something like that. But they want to limit it to only the baseball and the softball fields and the parking area that goes along with it.
This group sounds to me like it's all in the rec's hands at this time to move forward. Was there any other part of that picture that was a little off? Were you aware of?
Not that was presented to me anyway.
I just didn't know whether.
I think there was
the
some
lines-
explanation that needed to go along with the wording on the 10-year, what money is owed and if they cancel and that type of thing. So I think the explanation makes sense. I think that on a first read, it is a bit confusing and or it's concerning that they might be on the hook for $250,000 worth of expenditures in a 10-year span. But in reality, as long as they're maintaining the lease, that previous 10 years won't be subject to it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Related, not the same. You haven't had a chance to look into a grant to pay for all this stuff, right? Or the
No, I
Wildlife
was thinking
Parks
about
grant.
that today. It's quarterly.
The Wildlife Parks grant is, or the
Well,
Jones
no,
grant?
I was going after the Jones grant.
You can pair them together, right? And they'll do a
I
match.
assume so, yeah. But the Jones grant was the first place I was going to go to. And I do think that I don't know that I'll need the other, to be quite honest.
They'll cover it, you think? The handicap
Yeah, I
accessibility?
mean, they covered the computers fairly easily. I don't think it was any doubt. So I think that if we're presenting to them more improvements to a Jones Park, I almost see this as more of a surety than the other. So now that I've gone through this process once, I'm interested to see how that'll play out again. But again, I need to look. It's a quarterly deal, but I feel like you can only do, I can't remember if it's only one request per quarter or if it's one request per year. I'll need to look and see how that works. Maybe it's multiple in a year. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind, you could always have the city put their name on the grant application
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and
Have that be the entity.
double dip it.
Mhm.
And I know the KDWP grant, you could also partner, and it probably help the case if you had a school and a rec commission and a city all making a request. It showed pretty broad support and would probably help move it through, in my opinion. I mean, just kind of my read on it, but.
Yep.
So I don't know. I can't remember how much we're talking about down there and what all we were talking about.
The concrete was in just under 30,000.
Man, if there's free money out there.
Like I said, I mean, they forked over 25 and change for the computers. And I only see this as being more up their alley than less.
Cool.
And if we can assuming, let's say that we can make the submission during the fall quarter, we would know by Christmas which way we're going. And if that didn't come through, we can then obviously go after those other aspects.
Did they give you a time frame, the rec and the city, as far as getting together and get back with you?
No, specifically just because I'm relying upon the rec to redo their lease and then bring that to the city. I mean, I've indicated that we're ready to go. So the faster that they move is the faster that we can get this done and the faster that we could potentially make those improvements. So I'll definitely keep with them.
I think they're gonna get a letter put together pretty quick. That's all I know about it.
I just didn't know if they'd have something for us by the next meeting.
That's all I have for that.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments? All right, we will move on to number 20, the administrative reports.
Well, Twyla is not here today, but she did provide to you a report, so that I believe got shared to you through your email. I mean, it's June, so it's a little light, but specifically the summer literacy program, we are making plans for that, and we will be having that during July. And that'll be for preschool and kindergarten age students. Talked to Miss Creaky, actually, it was either today or yesterday, about those plans. So going to move forward with that, being that we will be in a phase out. We've got the literacy grant of the $31,000 to help with a number of those items. She did pass along, I don't know if you happen to see it, kind of a proposal of how she wants to utilize that grant. Did you guys get that email? You have not seen it. I do have it sharing on the screen if you want to pull up the Zoom. She's proposing, let's see, $1,000 for the MyOn Reader program through Renaissance. That'll provide an online library for our students. It'll be a part of the AR program. They are looking to hire a para for the summer literacy program so they can get some additional help there during the summer. The after school program, she is looking to continue that for the next school year. So that'll be Monday through Thursday during the week, 3:30 to 5:30. You can see the costs there. She is wanting to hire a teacher 1 day a week. So she'd like to have them come in and work with those early education students, as that's what the grant is intended for. So she would be coming in and helping Marie. I think she's going to help with the kindergarten class as well. I might be wrong on that, but structured literacy program you see there with the cost of $2,000. And then she does have just some additional resources that she can choose to utilize. For instance, we had some transportation issues come up, being that we have a large contingency looking at summer literacy this year. And so we're going to need an additional driver than what we typically do. And so we're going to fund that through that remaining fund. So a lot of good things for our kids. I'm really excited for the usage of this money, as it's going directly to those classrooms, and it's going to positively affect our students. Where do you want to go?
So I just keep going. So they're not looking, okay, right there, for a paraprofessional to work with a specific student, not to help the whole, right?
I think, I mean, it does say in here, this student has one-to-one para with them during the school year. So that para would be to help that student.
Okay.
But as usual, paras are pretty dynamic, and they may be with a one-on-one, but they're going to be there helping a number of students, I'm sure. Obviously, she would have loved to have been here, but hopefully I hit everything she needed. She did mention the summer maintenance. If you go over there to Quinamo, the gym is now orange instead of red. So we do have some other plans, I think, to paint up the remainder of that red and make that orange. Kind of doing some unity and getting all that taken care of. So it does look nice and fresh in there. They're even painting up the blue, kind of giving it a fresh coat. So it's looking really nice. And we're going to get some lights changed out in there. It's going to be a little bit brighter. Next week or next month, I'm going to have a proposal for you to approve to move forward with the basketball goals in our auxiliary gym and in the gym at Quinamo. Really excited about that work and looking forward to all that kind of coming together.
Are you still looking for a basketball goal or a basketball scoreboard?
Being that I looked at the scoreboard itself, other than the fact that there isn't the fouls being listed, and we're only in there for 3 nights in a year, I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with a $6,000 expenditure for fouls. So the rest of it did work. Dwayne has done a really good job of getting that put together and making sure that it's working the way that it needs to work. So unless we have, an issue with it, and knowing scoreboards and the way that we're having to deal with this one and here and some of the connections that we've got, connection problems that we've got in this gym, maybe I can get a 3-for-1 deal or something like that and get something worked out. But right now I'm kind of sitting on that one. Mr. Gordon.
Hey, real quick, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Before we go on,
Any ideas on getting Ms. Wallenberg something? Behalf of the board for her double knee deal? I mean, that's major. I'm looking at you because you're more thoughtful than me.
I do know the staff did share something with her. I think sent flowers or
That's cool.
care package. That type of thing.
I think it'd be great if the board got her something. She's always going above and beyond. Can we do?
Should be when we tell her.
Make sure you're on.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Mr. Gordon, before we get into trouble.
Okay. Not a ton to kind of go over. Just wanted to highlight a few things with graduation and promotion patrol, share a couple photos. Most of these I've borrowed from some people that I've seen post on the internet and whatnot, but there's some good shots out there. Graduation overall I thought was pretty huge success, and feedback pretty overwhelmingly was in favor of it. And several people had even said, this is awesome, I want to do this, at least something similar to it on a regular basis. So we might look at expanding it a little bit for next year and maybe doing something kind of similar, just because it was fun, it was different, and I think it put a few kids out in the spotlight a little more so than what they normally would have compared to the traditional graduation. So just want to kind of say a big thank you to those who were able to make it and sweat outside with us out front of the school building and getting sunburnt like I did. And big thanks to Mr. Sample and Joe and Caleb for letting us borrow some pickups and helping out some kids. And we had a lot of staff members and community members and rural fire and all kinds of people that were involved in it. So it really was a huge team effort, and it was just a good small town feel good type deal. So I'm very happy with it, and I think it turned out well. There's a couple shots of some things that were going on, and most of the parade portion didn't get a whole lot of shots of the actual diploma ceremony, but there is some floating around out there. Promotion patrol, we did that the very next day. We were supposed to do it the week prior and then had to push it back, but so we did it on Sunday right after graduation. Big shout out to all my teachers who gave up their Sunday afternoon to go do it. I had everybody but 2 in the junior high and had some additional staff members hop in, and big thanks to Mr. L for driving. We ended up getting done a little bit early, but about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, ended up going to all the kids' houses and had some party poppers and some air horns, and were kind of obnoxious and embarrassed the kids a little bit. It was pretty fun, and the staff had a good time with it. We were driving around blasting 80s music and had some pizza on the bus, and it was just a good time. Really, it was a nice way to finish up the school year, and it was something that was definitely fun. So had a couple shots there. Again, I kind of borrowed these from people on Facebook, but group photo, and then one of the actual handing off of the certificates. And overall, I was pretty happy with it, though. I think it went well. Summer conditioning and weights, we're in week 2 currently. Turnout's been pretty good so far, 20 to 30 per session, depending on what day it is. And the first session would be boys, and then the second session would be girls. We do run a shuttle back and forth to Quinamo. That seems to be utilized pretty well. And we've got quite a few staff members that are helping out with it total, but it seems like it's going pretty well. Summer maintenance still chugging along. Tom and Lori have been doing a really good job. The carpets look even better than last year in the building. If you get a chance to go look at it, they really look good. Weight room's starting to look really different. The ceiling's been raised now. The whole thing's getting repainted white. We're going to go through and do some work in it. And Lewis will be getting his weightlifting board, compliments of the senior class this year. They voted pretty well, it was unanimously, to donate a little bit of money to get him a record board. So we're going to have a record board for the weight program, and where it's going to go, I'm not 100% sure yet, but I kind of told him it was left to his program. So if he wanted to put it a certain place, I would allow him to put it in wherever he wanted to. So that'll be going up, but the ceiling project's been going pretty well overall. The existing lighting that was in there from way back when was actually still there and still usable. So they were able just to kind of remove the drop ceiling and then add the light bulbs in, and it went pretty well. Senior trip money, we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but we figured out the total amount, what the airline said they would give us, which was the total cost minus 15%. So we did math and figured out what it would be. We switched around some funds and stuff to fill up that senior account, and we divided it up evenly between the 11 that were going. Those will be going out this week, but they are at least good to go. When that money does come back in, we'll reimburse the accounts that we took it from, which was, I talked with Joe about it. It was just some of the stuff that we use in the high school. It's not a big problem. And I also forgot to mention we're going to paint the posts out on the football field kind of a battleship gray, which is what we use in the uniforms. So I think it'll kind of look nice, not be too dark, but not be too bright. I've heard a little bit of orange goes a long ways from a lot of people, so I didn't want to push that too much farther. And then just a little reminder to enjoy summer and family time and enjoy the warm weather. But today was actually a pretty nice day, so hopefully everybody got to go outside. That's about all I have, though. Questions?
You're sure that we're gonna get that money back from the airline?
They've said it was coming.
I don't know the amount, but I just think where the difference comes.
What is the amount?
I would have to remember exactly with the math off the top of my head. The initial cost for the airline tickets for all the kids that were going was somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,400 to $3,500. 36. Okay. And then you do the 15% math, it ended up being 3,100 and some change. I'd have to double check those exact numbers. But essentially, since they donated or gonna allot, we agreed on $1,200 for the weightlifting board. So we went ahead and took that total out of it. When it does get refunded back to us, then we'll get that money. But we shifted around the 31 and some change minus the $1,200, and we just kind of pulled that out of athletics account. Some money that we had that would have carried over, but we didn't have to use any of it for spring sports. And baseball, softball is a killer in terms of athletics, just because we don't charge admission. And when you have however many officials for various games, doubleheaders, etc., I mean, it totals up. So officials for baseball and softball are expensive. So we did have some money that we were able to come up with out of that athletics account. Any other questions?
It's Greg. Speaking of softball and baseball, how's it not having any games this year going to affect games next year?
Honestly, I don't really know. I would have to take a look kind of at the schedule. I'm assuming we would just pick back up where we left off, but I'm not sure if we'll just get pushed or if we will end up essentially having a ghost year and then going forward with what the schedule would look like the following year. Joe, maybe you can shed a little more light on that.
How's it looking?
Well, weren't we aren't we doing a 2-year contract basically with the schools? And haven't heard any problems from anybody
No, I mean,
continuing those or?
we do have new opponents on the schedule for next year. Just maximizing what we had. And there were, I think we lost Oskaloosa, but that was due to the common date that we had from this year conflicting with their league schedule for next year. But in fact, I think we actually are in addition of a game or two for next year's schedule because we did not use the full 20 this season. And so I want to say that we are at the full 20. We might be at 19. I'd have to count it, but I do know that we were more than we had last year. So all of the contracts, from what I had down, they were all up to this year. So we had to initiate new contracts for everybody for next year. So you can see on the calendar now on the app, all of the athletic schedules on the calendar. I haven't updated it in the tab of athletics yet, but it's on the calendar. And you can see all of those dates and who we're playing and all that stuff. You can even see the tentative dates for the following year because I did 2-year contracts with everything.
Right.
So we are 2-year contracted up with all of our stuff. So anyway, we shouldn't experience any problems with that.
There will be a league champion next year. We were supposed to do that this year, but it didn't happen. That was supposed to be a new addition.
But that'll be neat. And they're going to do, did they do all league stuff in years previous?
Nope.
They did authorize that for this year. They were going to do that.
It was supposed to happen.
So that'll
this
be
year.
nice that we'll actually have some all league selections as well.
I think there was some talk about a league tournament possibly even, but I don't know whether that'll end up happening or not, or if they'll just finish out the regular schedules and then kind of go from there.
All right. Thank you.
I want to say on behalf of the class of 2020 and the parents and everybody, I really want to thank you guys for what you did with graduation and the staff and everybody that was involved. It was really nice that they at least had something out of that spring. So, and I've heard, like Ben said, a lot of good stuff about it, and having a kid that was in that class, it meant a lot to us, and we really appreciate the hard work y'all put into it.
I do foresee a conversation happening next year with the senior class of now what do we do? Do you want to incorporate some of the things that we did? Is the parade the big thing that they liked out of that? Is the, having it outdoors something that they want to continue? I think even the day of, we were kind of having some conversations of it would be really cool to have it out on the football field and utilizing our new grandstand and things of that nature. So I think that might be a conversation that we might have as a group, but then also have that conversation with the kids, kind of talk to the students about that. And so I'm glad that went over really well. And as with success, it ends up creating even more conversation as to how do you move forward with that. So that's really cool.
I will say the kids that I did speak to about it, all of them were really happy with it and thought it was a lot of fun. And I heard the comment made several times that it was better than the traditional ceremony. So the end of the day, it's about them anyway. And if they were happy, then that's great. It was a lot of fun, so it was my pleasure.
Any other comments for our administrators? Do you have anything you want to add for yourself?
I had mine on that number, number 9.
Okay. We move on to number 21, personnel.
We'll need the first session, probably 15 to 20.
Make a motion to go into executive session for.
And that would be with just me and the board to start.
Number 1A for 20 minutes with the superintendent and the board, starting at 8:55.
This is Beth, I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, when I call your name, please say aye. Caleb?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Greg also says aye. Motion carries 7-0.
I thought we'd stay. Jim? Is that okay?
Unless you want to do Dan.
Close enough. You got 5 minutes unless you want to go to facilities.
Correct.
As long as you got your.
And I'm muting
We'll go ahead and call the meeting back to open session. We will be going back into an executive session for another 20 minutes for discuss individual employees' performance and non-elected personnel, exception under coma.
I'll second it.
Beth has seconded. If everybody will respond, and aye if you approve. Caleb,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
and Greg is aye. This will be with the board and superintendent only, coming back at 9:25. Thank you all. This is Greg. We're gonna go back out to open session for a little bit, and then we're also going to go right back into an executive session for the same information, 1A, with just the board this time. We will come back at 9:50.
This is Mark, I second it.
Motion and a second. Please say aye if you agree. Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Caleb.
Aye.
Greg also says aye, so the motion carries 7-0. We will be back at 10 till 10. That's Greg. We're going back into open session for a couple minutes, and we are going to do another 10-minute executive session again for discussing individual employee performance for non-elected personnel.
This is Beth, I'll second.
Motion and a second. All approve, say aye when I call your name. Caleb.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
And Greg is also an aye for 9 minutes. Come back at 10 o'clock. Just the board. Thank you all, and we'll see you at 10. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to open session again.
Make a motion, we go into executive session for 1A to discuss individuals' employees' performance, non-elected personnel exception under coma so come out at 10:10 with board and superintendent.
This is Beth, I'll second it.
Motion in a second. If you respond with an aye when I call your name for approval. Caleb, you powered?
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Greg is also an aye. That motion carries 7-0. We shall see you all at 10 after 10. Mom, we're having.
Joe, you need to mute.
It's Greg, and we're back into open session now. Anybody have anything they want to say?
We need another 5 minutes, don't we? Without,
Probably go 10, 5, and 5.
do what?
I'll make a motion, we go back into executive session for 1A again for 10 minutes, coming back at 10:25. I guess that's actually 11 minutes starting with the board and superintendent.
I'll second it. This is Beth.
Motion and second, please respond with an aye when your name is called if you approve. Caleb.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye.
And Greg is also an aye. So that goes for 7-0 again. We'll see you all at 25 after. This is Greg. We are back in open session again. Still working on personnel issues. So that's where we're at currently. So we need to finish up our contracts with our superintendent. Everybody's coughing and high.
I don't know what we ended up.
If you want to. Yep, that's what we've been using.
Yes.
Make a motion to go to executive session till 10:30.
With? Who all do you want in? Just the board? Okay.
I'll second it. Beth.
So that motion in a second, all in favor, please respond by aye when I call your name. Taylor,
Aye.
There you go.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Amy.
Aye.
Greg also is an aye. That's 7-0 till 10:30. All right, we're back into open session.
What is it?
Okay. This is Beth. I make a motion for the superintendent 3-year extension of contract with salary and benefits to be determined.
Smart place, yeah, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? You would respond with an aye if you're in favor. Somebody call your name. Caleb.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Greg also is an aye. That motion carries 7-0. Anything else on personnel, sir?
No.
All right, negotiations.
5 minutes.
You sure?
You want to make it to 35 and we can make it 3.5 or 2?
How long do you think you need?
Hey, you should not be over there.
Fine with that.
Oh,
Make it 35.
which one is it? Angie?
It's E.
Is it 5E?
Yep.
Okay, make a motion, to go into executive session for 5E, board superintendent, principal, till 10:37.
This is Beth, I second.
Trooper and
We have a motion and a second. If please respond with an aye if you agree. Caleb,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
Greg is also an aye. See you at 10:37. All right, this is Greg. We're back in open session again. Anything else on negotiations?
No, sir.
Board comments? If there's any comments to make, I need one more motion.
I move we adjourn.
I second it.
Motion second, please respond by aye when I call your name. Caleb?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Greg also aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all kindly for coming and listening in on our board meeting tonight. Have a good night.